Hi, y'all. Thanks for joining us. And Ricco is here with us today. And if you are just joining us and you really haven't watched the first episode, I highly recommend to watch that. That'll kind of put all together of why we're here, what we're talking about, and you can come back and join us. So I really wanted Ricco to share today of how he started his yoga practice and what really gave him that spark. What was the interest that got you started?
Injury, actually. I'd always been a runner and the typical gym guy, you know, go to the gym a couple times a week, go running a couple times a week. And I noticed that during longer runs, after I would go for a couple of miles, I started getting this consistent pain in my hip joint. So after going to see the doctor and stuff, it was probably some kind of lower compression that I had in my, or compression that I had in my lower back. And that it was my sciatic nerve that was getting tight and kind of causing that pain in my hip joint. So
Yikes.
He just said basically, well, it's not anything that's really severe. If you're able to still continue with your running, your best thing to do is maybe just stretch out your, sciatic nerve on a regular basis and do stretches that support that. So as I went in my research looking for things to stretch that, all these yoga poses kept popping up. This is probably about 7 years ago or so, I think, at the time. So there wasn't at that time just a plethora of yoga videos or anything out on the internet. It wasn't that, extremely mainstream at the time. But I started doing these, specific poses on a regular basis, and I noticed that over time it was relieving the pain in that joint. And I noticed that if I stopped doing those poses, for a week or two, that the pain would come back. So it kind of progressed from there, that as I started learning more about the poses and learning more about yoga, I would get more involved with it, and I started doing more flow type stuff. So it never really, I didn't get into it with the intention of it becoming a regular practice, but 6-7 years later, and it's the only, other than jogging still, it's the only other exercise form that I really do.
And you still find that you can jog now?
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking about this a couple days ago, was that the stretching that I was doing to stretch out the IT band there and to help with my sciatica, that was kind of a short-term type thing. And like I was saying, if I didn't do the certain stretches for a while, then the pain would come back. But I think a couple of years ago, I dedicated myself to more of a back bending practice, so that became one of my strengths really on it. And ever since I started doing that, like, that's been almost a, what seems like a permanent fix for it, because I've strengthened my back so much that it's really kind of elongated me more, and that pain is just, I don't ever feel it anymore. So it's pretty incredible. Even if for some reason I have an injury and I have to go 3 or 4 weeks without doing any yoga, I haven't noticed that, pain come back.
Wow,
so
that's
it's pretty
remarkable.
incredible.
That's really, really awesome that you started that on your own, but that just one spark of interest progressed you into just wanting to find out more.
Yep, absolutely.
So did you ever have hesitation being a guy, being a male, doing a practice? Do you see that hesitation happens?
Yes, I do. And at the time that I started yoga, I don't want to say, it's exploded in the last, 5-10 years or so. So I feel like at the time that I had started it, there were very few yoga studios around where I was living. There wasn't a lot of class option at that time. And I wasn't really of the mindset, okay, I'm going to go get into this. And I did have reservations as a guy, just thinking that, this isn't something that guys do, on a regular basis. So my experience with it was actually just, I started taking classes through on-demand cable. They had those fitness stations on there, and I would start taking classes on that. So, I was a secret yoga dude, in the house all the time. But that's how I got comfortable with it. So to me, with guys, there are a couple of things that go hand in hand with a hesitation for yoga. And number one is being a guy, and number two is just it's a completely new language that you learn, with not only the names of stuff, but also just the movements themselves and everything. So it can be intimidating to step into that, especially if you go straight into a classroom setting. me trying to learn a lot of it on my own before I went into the classroom setting, I think kind of eased both my, you know, hesitations that I would have had about either being a guy or not knowing what to do once I got into the class. So, and then I think that kind of a third thing that can play into it is that if you're a guy and you have hesitation about going into it, yoga, and then you kind of start weighing, well, there's a, you know, economics play into it too. If I've got a gym membership that I'm paying, you know, $50 to $60 a month for, you know, do I get a separate yoga membership that I'm also paying money for? Can I afford that? Do I just go to a gym that, you know, offers group classes that are yoga? But then that gets back to, well, if all the other guys in the gym see me walking into this, you know, group class setting, are they gonna be talking behind my back and stuff like that? So it's really, once you get into yoga and you learn it, kind of those insecurities fall away because you just don't care anymore. You know, you kind of strengthen your own attitude towards it, and it becomes a, you know, you get a little bit more pride once you get into it. And that,
That's a good
you know,
point.
I'm very open, you know, now I try and get other people to come into the classes and everything too. So it's something that you kind of progress through and don't really, you know, that attitude drops pretty quickly once you get into it. It's really weird because I feel like yoga, you know, the male hesitation for it, and I don't know about other countries, but I feel like yoga was, you know, originally probably heavily male populated and back in, you know, India and a lot of its origins and stuff. And,
Yes.
so it's funny that in the States it kind of became more of a, you know, feminine activity to do. But I think that's really started to change in the last 5 years, because I've noticed several classes that you know, Barefoot, that we'll have every now and then we'll have guys outnumber the girls in the class. So that's pretty encouraging. And, you know, when I start thinking about, you know, I still have the same mindset thinking about Pilates. Like, I know that you go to Pilates classes and bar classes and stuff, and, you know, I know that that's a good workout, but, you know, I still have the same mindset towards those types of activities now.
Right.
That, you know, I'm comfortable with my yoga. I don't really know, you know, necessarily what's going on in those classes, so I'm going to be a little bit more hesitant to try something like that out. So there's stigmas with it, but once you get into it, find what you like, attach yourself to that, and then it kind of grows from there, basically. So
A lot of what I see, to add on to what you said, was that yoga, one, when you think of yoga, you know, 90% of people look at the physical aspect of it. And like you said, it started, I mean, the main teachers that even opened it up to the world were male. The emotional aspect of it, that people kind of have an understanding, but not really. They know it's there. They don't really know what it's about.
Right.
What I have found a few times is that men have a lot of times been grown up to don't feel this way. You have to suck it up, be this way. So, you know, females too, but I don't know if it's a generational thing or what goes on, but how it's taught. And a lot of times, you know, if you are given that permission to be okay, for some reason that has some type of feminine quality to it. You know, we're more apt to talking about things and to getting things out there. And the more you internalize things and, you know, and don't get it out, that's when all the junk it comes out, but it comes out in different ways.
Right.
So yeah, you know, I've been asked before, I'll get phone calls and say, you know, do you have all guys classes, or what's your ratio? How does that work? And a lot of times that's honestly why we do the intro courses, because it's not only introducing you to a beginner class, even more than a beginner progression, but it just gives you, it's more of a workshop setting.
Right.
It's very talking. I mean, you still have the physical practice, but it's a different introduction. So I do encourage people to check out, if they're going to do classes, to have that conversation if they have the hesitation, because you know, like you talked, it's natural. It happens. Yeah. And if you just start, that will go away.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I mean, I think we were talking the other day, and it's been about 4 years since I started at Barefoot, and I was trying to remember back to my first class that I ever took, and it was too hard to do, but I knew I was nervous going into it, and I remember that it was a medium-sized class. There were probably, you know, 15 people or so in there, and there were only, you know, maybe two or three other guys in it. by the end of it, you know, it was a beginner class. I don't know that you were doing the intro, you know, series at that time, but it was a beginner course. And I remember walking into it scared, but walking out very comfortable. So even if you've been practicing for a little while, just to learn the teachers, you know, learn with other people so that you lose that intimidation. If you're walking in with some other beginners, that's always a more comfortable environment to start in than, you know, trying to push yourself into something. And just for, you know, safety purposes too, you want to, you know, kind of start where you're comfortable with and kind of progress up from there. So
right. And I get that too. A lot of people want to start in my intermediate advanced class because they know that it will be physically challenging. And you know, it's hard to tell somebody that has just walked into up those 2 steps and they want to do this, that's not the best option to do. And you know, it's like you run, I kind of jog. I like to think I jog, I kind of jog, but if I try to go do a marathon with you, it just wouldn't work. You know, you have to start with the foundation and respect your body.
I agree. I would recommend that if people are interested in getting into it, guys or girls really, you know, commit yourself to 10 classes, take as many different teachers as you can, take as many different classes as you can, because you're going to run into some classes that don't really do it for you. But once you find the class that you really love, continue to take that course and let it grow from there. Because once you latch on to, you know, that certain movement or that certain activity that you really like, or the, you know, even if it's the cardio or the strength building that you felt after the class, continue to take that class, because that's your foundation to start from, and then progress out from there, because you'll get more attracted to other styles. Once you become comfortable with one thing, it'll make you want to progress into other things too. At least that's been my experience. So
I'm glad.
2 cents.
I'm glad. No, I appreciate you sharing and appreciate your practice.
Absolutely. Thank you for providing such a great spot for it.
You're welcome. Okay, so tell me.
Highlights of our weeks.
Good, I'm glad. So tell me how you drink your coffee.
Straight black coffee, no sugar, no milk. I'm purist at heart when it comes to that.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Welcome, thank you.